as a teacher in English. So can you turn on the camera and turn on the microphone? Mr.
All right. Yes.
Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So I want to introduce you guys about the guest in this meeting today. It's really special. The first one, TOEFL certified in English teacher, and he has 9 years of in-classroom teaching experience, and certified IELTS specialist, certified TOEFL specialist, co-founder, Năng Club. It's also the CEO of Năng Club. Yeah, it's really, interesting and amazing. So today meeting, he will share with you guys the tips for IELTS, and especially speaking skill. He's also specialist in accent development. So, Mr. Michael, in Vietnam, we have a tendency to focus much on studying grammar for examination at school, and we ignore speaking skill. So understanding the importance of speaking skill, we try to organize this learning series for people who want to practice this kind of skill. And I think it's very lucky to cooperate with you in this meeting. So let's introduce something about ourselves.
All right, I sure will. As a matter of fact, I have a presentation I would like to share with you guys. And I'm going to give you all a little introduction about myself and some of my experience teaching the IELTS exam. Yeah, as mentioned, I will talk a little bit about the IELTS speaking portion. And then I'd like to talk about speaking in general, accent development, pronunciation, some of the things you can do to get better at speaking. And at the end, I'd like to open it up to you guys. So I'm going to speak for a short time, but then I would like you guys to give me questions that you have, because that's the best way to get better, to ask the questions that you yourself have. So in a moment, I am going to share my presentation for about 15 minutes. And then I will let you guys ask me some questions. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I would like to share my presentation to you.
I want to speak a little bit.
Okay, yes, please.
There's some students in this meeting, they want you to speak slowly because they cannot understand.
More slowly.
Okay, more slowly.
Okay.
And so I want to translate for them to understand a little bit. So
Okay.
thầy muốn nói cho các bạn thì trong buổi ngày hôm nay thì thầy sẽ chia sẻ với các bạn tất cả bằng tiếng Anh, thì thầy sẽ cố gắng là nói chậm cho các bạn, nên là các bạn cứ yên tâm trong cái việc là mình hiểu. Các bạn cố gắng là hãy loát thật kỹ và tập trung thật kỹ để nghe rằng thầy nói gì. Đây cũng là một cơ hội để các bạn có thể luyện trong thời gian tới, thì các bạn sẽ luyện tiếng Anh rất là nhiều, nên mình hy vọng là mọi người sẽ cố gắng là học tập tốt hơn. Và bên cạnh đó là trong buổi ngày hôm nay thì sẽ có những cái phần đó là phần hỏi đáp, thì các bạn sẽ được hỏi với thầy mặc dù là người nước ngoài nhưng mà về kỹ năng sư phạm, về IELTS, về speaking thì rất là giỏi, và thầy có những chứng chỉ về dạy IELTS và có 9 năm kinh nghiệm trong cái việc đó là đi dạy tiếng Anh. Nên là các bạn có bất kỳ những câu hỏi nào trong buổi ngày hôm nay thì hãy cố gắng hỏi. Nếu như các bạn không nói được bằng tiếng Anh thì các bạn có thể nhắn bằng tiếng Việt, thì sẽ có một chị bên này, chị sẽ phiên dịch sang cho thầy để thầy có thể là trả lời cho các bạn. So yeah, my translation is enough.
Okay. Well, let's get started. All right. I would like to start by talking about the IELTS. So here we go. Okay, I hope that you can see my screen. I am going to use this presentation today. Okay, so first, let's discuss the speaking criteria. I know someday many of you will take the IELTS exam. And when you do that, one of the most important parts, or at least the part that many people feel very nervous about, is the speaking part. People get really nervous with IELTS speaking because they have to talk to a native English teacher. So how do you get a good grade on the IELTS speaking? Well, this is how they grade you. This is how you get your marks. There are 4 parts. The first is called fluency and cohesion. I'm going to explain it in just a moment. This means how clearly can you speak? So they want you to speak without repeating, and they want you to correct your own mistakes. For example, if you say a word wrong, you should fix it. They look for that. It also means that you should have correct vocabulary and grammar. The second point is lexical resource. This means you need a lot of words, a good vocabulary. The third point is about grammar. That means you should use the correct tense. If you're telling a story, you should use the past tense, for example, and you should use correct grammar. And finally, what we are going to talk about today is pronunciation. Can someone understand you? Do you say the words correctly? That's very important. So as mentioned, I would like to talk to you guys about accent development and pronunciation. First of all, how important is accent? Well, English is the official language of 67 different countries in the world. And there's really no correct accent. Of course, there's a US accent, a British accent, Canadian, Singaporean, Jamaican. All of these countries speak English natively, and they all have different accents. On the IELTS, the accent doesn't matter so much, but pronunciation does. And there's a little difference between them, and that's what we'll talk about. Let's talk about pronunciation for the IELTS, how to improve your accent when you're taking the speaking portion of the exam. Let's focus on that. All right. The first most important thing to do is try to find what sounds are very difficult for you to say. So everyone is different, every language is different, and different languages have different sounds. So you need to figure out which sounds you yourself struggle with. But here are some of the common ones that I think everyone should practice. These are some of the sounds that people find very difficult, and they often get confused when using these sounds in their pronunciation. The first one is the TH sound, the TH sound, the. A lot of times people say duh or zh or something like that, but it's really important to say the and practice that sound. Something similar with the TR sound, tra, tra. Another common mistake I always see is that people will forget to put the S at the end of a word. Or maybe someone struggles with the vowels in words like bird, board, and barred. The words sound similar, but the vowel is different. Other common mistakes are words like SH and CH. For example, shin and chin. They sound really similar and they can be difficult to say, but it's very important that you can make a difference between SH and CH. Also TR. So for example, ship, chip, and trip. They all sound really the same, I know, but they're slightly different. So what I want to say is it is so important to find the sounds that you think are difficult and practice them a lot. That's very important. These are some of the common ones, but there are plenty. And the best way to do it is really just through practice. Try to say these words, ship, chip, and trip, and keep saying them until you can say them correctly. It can take some time, but practice makes perfect. Okay, what else can we do to fix our accents? One thing I want to talk about is how does the sentence sound? The sentence stress. An example of this, if you're asking a question, does the sentence go up or does the sentence go down? And yes, I see someone has raised their hand. Have you got a question?
Các bạn nào có câu hỏi gì không ạ?
See down your hand. Continue.
Okay. Okay. All right. So when you're speaking, if you want to have a good accent, if you want to pronounce words well, it's not only about the word. You need to think about the whole sentence. Here's one tip I'd like to give. If you have a WH question, a question that uses the word who, what, when, where, why, these sentences will always have a falling tone. The stress will go down. For example, where are you going? The voice will go down as you speak it. On the other hand, a yes or no question will have a rising tone. Did you go to the store? It will rise up as you speak. Why is this important? Well, it's how you sound like a native speaker. So when you are practicing, I want to recommend that you think about the whole sentence. Don't only try to pronounce the word, but with accent, you need to pronounce the whole sentence. Does it go up? Does it go down? Which words have stress, for example? How do you do it? Well, you copy someone's voice. This is called shadowing. To shadow, you can find the voice of someone that you like. So if you listen to a podcast or a YouTube video, listen to a sentence and then say it also and copy it. Copy every part of it, not just the words, right? But copy when it gets higher, when it gets lower. That's one of the most important secrets to having a good accent. If you also want to sound very fluent with a very natural accent, use contractions, words like I'm. So don't say, I am hungry. Say, I'm hungry. Don't say, I would like a cup of coffee. Say, I'd like a cup of coffee. This is how native speakers use English. And if you can use English this way, you will sound much more fluent. In real life, nobody says, I would like. We always say, I'd like. And it is okay to use contractions in the IELTS, right? I'm sleepy, right? I can't do this instead of I cannot. All right, that's important. Okay, you might want to use some idioms. Idioms are expressions that have a specific meaning. For example, if we say it's raining cats and dogs, maybe you've heard it. That means it's raining a lot. It's raining very heavily. Idioms are great because we usually don't learn them in school. They're things that native speakers use naturally. And you can learn a lot of idioms and phrases from watching television, watching movies, or YouTube. It's fantastic, right? Try to listen to real English and copy them, right? It's not a waste of time to watch TV. It's not a waste of time to watch YouTube as long as you're listening and trying to learn from how they speak. Another thing you can do is try to reduce your pauses. So instead, if you don't know what to say, if you just have no idea what to say, try to use a filler word instead of or you could say well, or to be honest, or in other words, I suppose. So instead of just pausing, instead of saying or and this is especially useful for the IELTS speaking portion, try to use a filler phrase like this. So yeah, you could say, you know, a very common one to sound natural is like. A lot of Americans especially say, it's like, you know, it's like this. We like to say the word like a lot, and that's great. It's much better than just pausing and leaving some empty space in your sentence. It's better to put some filler word in there. Again, spend time shadowing. Shadowing someone's voice is probably the most effective way to improve your pronunciation and accent. There's lots of places that you can do this. Podcasts are good because you can listen to them slowly and they're free. YouTube is a great resource. Movies are great. TED Talks are great. But again, don't focus on each word. Focus on the whole sentence, right? Language needs to flow like a river. It's not just one word at a time, but it's the whole idea. And that is how you sound natural, by focusing on the whole sentence. Also, slow down. Speed is not fluency. I know many students who think that if they talk really fast, it will sound natural. And yes, sometimes native speakers can talk very fast, but it's not necessary. You can speak slowly and very precisely. And sometimes the more slowly you speak, the more natural your voice will sound, the more easy it will be to understand you. All right, guys, those are my main points. What I really want to do is open this up to you and allow you to ask the questions that you want to ask now. So I want to answer your questions. I wanted to speak for around 15 minutes and allow you guys to ask your questions. I would like to open it to you. You can ask questions about IELTS or TOEFL or SAT. You can ask questions about English language, about speaking, about the United States, whatever you would like. This is your chance to ask anything to an English teacher. So class, the platform is yours. What questions have you got for me? And you are welcome to say them. And if you're not comfortable speaking them, you're welcome to type them as well.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for the sharing. And right now I want to translate for some people.
Yes, please. Okay.
What you say. So chào các bạn, thì trong buổi ngày hôm nay thì thầy đã chia sẻ với bạn về kỹ năng, đó là kỹ năng speaking. Thì ở trong này có một vài thứ mà mình thấy rất là tâm huyết và rất là thích ở cái việc đó là thầy chia sẻ với các bạn những thứ mà mình phải học tiếng Anh và mình phải nghiên cứu mãi thì nó mới ra được một số cái thứ mà mình nghĩ rằng là nó rất là hữu ích. Thứ nhất là thầy đang nói về cái vấn đề đó là cách chúng ta luyện speaking như thế nào để cho nó tốt. Thì có những cái vấn đề gì chúng ta cần phải lưu ý khi chúng ta nói. Thì ở đây thầy có chia sẻ một cái phương pháp, đó là phương pháp shadowing. Phương pháp shadowing là cái phương pháp mà mình sẽ bắt chước, tức là thầy nói mình là mình copy lại những cái gì của người nước ngoài nói, người bản xứ nói. Và bây giờ chúng ta có rất là nhiều cái nguồn ở trên YouTube cũng như là cái nguồn ở nơi này nơi kia để các bạn có thể luyện cái điều đó. Ví dụ người ta nói một câu thì bạn nhại lại một câu. Cái việc nhại lại này nó không chỉ đơn thuần là các bạn nhại lại sử dụng cái từ của nó, mà các bạn sẽ sử dụng luôn cả cái accent, tức là người ta nói ngữ điệu lúc nào lên lúc nào xuống, các bạn sử dụng nó luôn, làm theo như vậy luôn. Các bạn hình dung được không ạ? Thì cái điều đó nó sẽ rất là tốt. Thì cái phương pháp này nó giống như cái phương pháp chép chính tả mà mình bắt các bạn làm ở trong nhóm lớp đấy. Ok, bạn hình dung không? Cái viết này mình bắt các bạn làm như vậy thì đó là cái phương pháp shadowing mà các bạn đang sử dụng. Bên cạnh đó thì thầy có chia sẻ một vài thứ nữa là chúng ta hãy cố gắng là phát âm đúng chứ không cần phải nói nhanh, bởi vì nói nhanh thì nó rất là, đôi khi nó rất là, các bạn sẽ phát âm sai. Nên là các bạn cố gắng là có thể nói chậm, bởi vì tốc độ nó không đồng nghĩa việc là chúng ta nói fluently là nói lưu loát đấy. Rồi ngoài ra có một số tip nữa, thì cái nội dung này chúng ta sẽ share lại với nhau, thì mình muốn nói lại với các bạn cái nội dung kia. Thì bây giờ thì sẽ có những câu hỏi của bạn. So here's a question some students want to ask you. Who can you translate this question for him?
Okay, so the first question that I see here, how can we use the vocabulary we've learned? I cram a lot of vocabulary, but it's pretty hard to use all of them in the speaking. Oh, you want me
That's
to
a
read it?
yeah,
Okay.
that is a great question. It is difficult. It's something I wish I was better at too. You know, English has, I believe, the biggest vocabulary of any language. I learn new words all the time. The best way to do it is just to try to use them. If you learn a new word, just try to make an effort to use it. So say you learned a new word yesterday. Tell yourself, I'm going to use this word today. I really think that's the best way to do it. Honestly, one of the best ways to become very familiar with vocabulary is through reading a lot. The more you read, the more familiar you will be with the vocabulary, and it actually becomes easier to use it in your speaking. You remember it better, at least in my experience. So my recommendation is try to read a lot so that those words become very comfortable and familiar to you. And then just force yourself to use them. If you learn some new words that you like and you really like the sound of them, tell yourself, I must use that word today, and try to use it in a real situation, even if you're just talking to yourself. But you just have to use it.
Thì có chia sẻ là tiếng Anh có rất nhiều từ vựng để học, và khi học một từ thì các bạn cố gắng phải dùng ngay, và tốt nhất là các bạn nên đọc nhiều để quen từ, và sau đó mình sẽ biết cách dùng và cố gắng dùng nó, thậm chí là có thể là tự tập nói với bản thân và cố gắng dùng nó ngay.
Đây là cả trường à? Không. Giống với
So yeah.
Okay, so anyone, if you have any question, you can raise your voice. You can raise your voice. You can turn on the microphone. Quên mất. Các bạn ơi, nếu như các bạn có câu hỏi nào thì các bạn có thể bật mic lên và các bạn hỏi nhá, hỏi bằng tiếng Anh thầy trả lời nhá, cho nó sinh động hơn, thay vì cái chuyện dịch nó cũng thiếu cái sự interesting nhá. Nếu bạn nào muốn hỏi thì các bạn cứ bật mic lên.
Have you a YouTube channel?
Sorry, you mean how to practice through English or through YouTube?
Ý bạn hỏi là làm thế nào để học tiếng Anh qua YouTube ạ? Bạn có thể lặp lại câu hỏi cho mình.
Right. Well, I think, do I have a YouTube channel? Well, as a matter of fact, yes, there's a YouTube channel that I use with the company that I work with, Lane Club. It's called American English with Michael. And I post there. Yeah, you can see me speaking there throughout the week. Absolutely. I will write it out for you. You can find me on YouTube. Yes. All right. I see some other great questions in the chat. I think let's have a look at some of these as well. Some of these questions were really good. The next question, let's see here. The next question that I see, well, I have one here. Where in America are you? Actually, I'm not in America now. I live in Thailand, but I am from Texas. So if you know where Texas is, that's where I come from. I see the question, how do I get more ideas to answer speaking questions? That can be hard. So for those of you who have prepared for the IELTS, you know that sometimes the questions are very random. Sometimes you don't know what they will ask, and it can be hard to have an idea of what to say. One thing I want to emphasize is that actually your answer is not part of your grade. What they grade is your grammar and your vocabulary and things like that. So for example, I'll tell a story. I had a student one time, and he was a boy that I taught in Thailand, and he loved sports and cars and things like that. But on the IELTS speaking, they asked him about his favorite flower, and he didn't know about flowers. But instead, he tried to explain to them that he was not so familiar with flowers. He described a few that he knew of, but he got a good grade because they didn't grade how much he knew about flowers. It's not a test about flowers. It's a test about the English. So how to get more ideas to answer speaking questions. Sometimes on the IELTS, you just have to try to say as much as you do know about the subject, but try to learn as much as you can about all sorts of subjects. There's many lists of possible questions, many typical questions they might ask that you can find online, and then just practice. Search a list of IELTS speaking and try to practice as many as you can. I think that's just important because you never know what they'll ask you.
Thầy có nói là trong bài kiểm tra IELTS thì câu hỏi của nó mình có thể là mình không thể lường trước là họ sẽ hỏi gì, và điểm số của mình nó không phụ thuộc vào cái kiến thức. Ví dụ như là thầy có chia sẻ là thầy có một bạn học sinh là khi đi thi thì giám khảo có hỏi bạn là loài hoa yêu thích của bạn là gì, nhưng mà bạn ấy thì không biết nhiều về các loài hoa, nhưng mà sau này thì điểm của bạn vẫn rất cao, bởi vì thực chất là người ta không phải kiểm tra về kiến thức chung của bạn, không phải kiểm tra về kiến thức về các loài hoa, mà chủ yếu là kiểm tra về ngôn ngữ của bạn, về cách bạn sử dụng tiếng Anh. Nên các bạn hãy cố gắng là các bạn hiểu nhiều kiến thức và luyện tập nói thường xuyên.
All right. Let's see. Well, we have a few questions here about writing. So maybe I can mention something about writing as well. I believe that the English that goes in sort of becomes the English that comes out. A lot of today I've been talking about speaking, and I mentioned that if you want to speak well, you need to listen a lot. Writing is very similar. If you want to be a good writer, you should read a lot. Try to listen or try to read and study the phrases and try to use them in your own writing. But that's really a great way to do it. Good writers must read a lot. You can read the newspaper, you can read some online blog, you can read a novel, even a comic book. As long as you're reading something, you're going to be improving in some way. If you really want to practice writing, try to do it every day, even if it's just for yourself. Maybe you could write a story or a diary or a journal. Doesn't mean anyone else has to read it, but as long as you're practicing, you will improve. And if you want to practice writing for the IELTS, again, you can just search online for IELTS essay questions and you can try to answer them, right? You can try to answer them yourself and try to write them out. The best way to get better is through reading a lot and through practicing your own writing skills. I think that's really important. It doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to have an assignment. Why not try writing a daily diary for yourself? That could be a really good way to practice as well. Try to use the new words that you've learned.
Thầy có chia sẻ là giống như là muốn nói nhiều thì muốn nói tốt thì bạn phải nghe nhiều, và muốn viết tốt thì các bạn phải đọc nhiều. Nên các bạn nên cố gắng đọc, và không cần phải là các bạn có thể đọc truyện tranh hoặc là các bạn có thể đọc tiểu thuyết, nhưng mà từ bài đọc đó thì mình có thể dùng trong bài viết của mình, và các bạn có thể tập viết truyện hoặc là viết nhật ký. Sau đó thì các bạn có thể search trên mạng những từ khóa như là writing essay question và cố gắng tập viết. Nhưng mà có những đề IELTS thì thường mọi người cập nhật trên mạng rất nhiều.
All right. I also have the question here, is learning idioms important? Well, I will say somewhat. Idioms can make you sound very native because they're the phrases that people don't usually learn at school. So for example, if I was going to talk about my boss, right? You can describe the boss as the big cheese. Sounds weird, right? If you hear someone talk about the big cheese, it sounds odd, but every American knows that is someone important. The big cheese is an important person. So, for example, if I'm a teacher, I would say the big cheese at this school is the principal. But if you didn't learn that phrase, it could sound weird. You might not know what it means. So learning idioms is somewhat important. They can make you sound more native, but they're not really necessary. You could just say the principal or my boss. They can help. I wouldn't focus too much on them, but they can help if you hear them because you'll know what it means. And it can add some fluency to your speaking as well. So they're important, but they're not the most important. You can be totally fluent without idioms. They just add a bit of extra fluency, extra native sounding speech.
Bạn hỏi là thành ngữ có quan trọng không? Thầy có trả lời là nó cũng có quan trọng bởi vì nó giúp bạn nói giống như người bản ngữ hơn. Ví dụ như là từ boss thì ở người Mỹ thì người ta dùng là big cheese, là kiểu cheese là phô mai lớn, thì nghĩa là người quan trọng, thì nghe nó khá là lạ, nhưng mà đó là một từ người ta rất là hay dùng. Ví dụ như là thay vì mình nói là người quan trọng nhất ở trường là thầy hiệu trưởng, thì mình nói là thay vì nói là the most important person at school is the principal, thì mình nói là the big cheese at school is the principal. Tức là nó thành ngữ nó quan trọng nhưng không phải là quá cần thiết, và nó không phải là điều cần thiết nhất. Bạn có thể là không dùng thành ngữ cũng được, và bạn có thể đạt được điểm cao nhờ vào những cái khác.
Em có thể hỏi không ạ?
Vâng ạ.
How can I learn vocabulary effectively and remember it for long time? Because I live in an environment where there are not many opportunity to communicate in English with native speakers.
Right. Well, you can learn it on your own as well. That's a great question. So how to remember the vocabulary and expand your vocabulary? Well, here's what I do. I really do this because I'm always learning new words as well. I like to read. And I actually keep a notebook. And as I'm reading, if I meet a new word, maybe it's a really nice sounding word and I've never seen it, I look up the meaning, I write it down in my notebook. Somehow writing it down helps me a lot. So first of all, I would say read a lot. You know, if you don't have the chance to speak to someone in person, you can still listen to a lot of native speakers. You can listen to people online. You can listen to YouTube. You can listen to television shows. Think about the words they say. If you're watching a movie, right, make sure that the audio is in English. And also, the subtitles should be in English. You can read the subtitles, but make sure they're both in English. That way you listen and you read along. And again, if you see a new vocabulary word, write it down and try to have a look at that notebook. I personally do this. I think it's very useful. And it's how I learn new vocabulary words too. So even if you don't have someone to speak to in your daily life, you can still learn a lot by listening and by reading along.
Khi mà bạn không nói trực tiếp được, không có cơ hội nói trực tiếp được với người bản ngữ, thì bạn có thể xem YouTube, xem phim, xem các TV show, và từ đó thì bạn có thể quen được với cách người bản ngữ nói. Và tốt nhất là khi mà có những video mà có phụ đề thì bạn có thể bật phụ đề và bạn xem cùng lúc với video, và bạn có thể tự học được một số cách, như là bạn đọc nhiều, và mỗi khi mà gặp một cái từ mới thì bạn tra từ đó và cố gắng viết vào sổ, và khi viết ra thì nó sẽ dễ nhớ.
Okay. Great. The next question, can I speak Vietnamese? No, I'm sorry. No, I cannot. I live in Thailand and I can speak some Thai, but I cannot speak Vietnamese. Okay, the next question. When I talk to native speakers, I often don't arrange words properly and speak very slowly. How do I fix it? Well, speaking slowly is not bad. Speaking slowly is not a bad thing. In fact, I think we should all speak a little bit more slowly for people to understand. That's actually okay. Not arranging words properly, I can understand why that could be a little bit, could make you feel nervous. But truthfully, if you're talking to native speakers, that's good. It doesn't have to be perfect because practice makes perfect. So the more you speak, the better it will be. It's okay to make some mistakes. The truth is, there are so many different types of English, as I mentioned, British English, American English, Jamaican English, South African English, and they're all correct. So English speakers are really used to hearing many different types of English that are still correct. And sometimes they use different words. For example, the British say, "What did you do at the weekend?" And in America, we say, "What did you do on the weekend?" The words are different. It's not a mistake. It's just a different type of English. So native English speakers are not used to noticing mistakes, really. We're very used to listening to lots of different English and thinking it's always correct. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just keep practicing. And the fact that you're already talking to native speakers is really good. Keep doing that. It will get better over time.
Khi mà bạn luyện nói tiếng Anh thì với người bản ngữ thì không cần phải đúng hết và bạn có thể phạm lỗi bởi vì có rất nhiều nước nói tiếng Anh và cái ngữ điệu của họ rất là khác nhau và cách dùng của họ cũng rất khác nhau. Như ở Anh thì người ta dùng at the weekend, nhưng mà ở Mỹ thì người ta dùng on the weekend. Và thật ra khi mà nói chuyện với nhau thì người ta sẽ không chú ý đến lỗi nhiều đâu, nên bạn cứ cố gắng tập và không cần phải ngại gì cả.
Please tell me how to learn good grammar.
How to learn good grammar. Well, grammar is kind of like a puzzle, right? You have to learn all of the rules and how the pieces fit together. So grammar is one of those things that it's one of the few things that you really should learn by studying it. Well, there's two ways to do it. Yes, you can study a lot in a textbook, and that actually can be useful for grammar. Otherwise, what I kind of like is try to train your ear. Start listening to lots of English, and soon you will be able to tell if something sounds wrong or if something sounds right. You have to listen to a lot of it. But you start to identify this. Your ear starts being tuned in to what sounds right. And that's really important. So when I was in school, I studied German. That was my foreign language I studied. And my German teacher always said that's what we had to do. We had to keep listening until we just recognized if something sounded right or if it sounded wrong. And it becomes more natural. So number one, you should probably study the grammar constructions. You should probably study the grammar rules in a textbook. But number two, focus on what sounds right, because eventually you will train your ear to that. And I think that's just as important. Try to put in as much English as possible. Listen to it every day. It really does help with grammar.
Học ngữ pháp thì thường là khá khó bởi vì bạn phải học hết tất cả cái luật của nó. Thì có hai cách, một cách thì chúng ta rất hay dùng đó là học theo sách giáo khoa. Nhưng mà còn một cách thứ hai thì thầy có đề cập đó là nếu mà các bạn nghe nhiều thì đến một lúc nào đó các bạn sẽ quen và các bạn sẽ cảm nhận được là cái nào nó có vẻ đúng và cái nào có vẻ sai. Thì các bạn cố gắng nghe nhiều vào.
All right. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
About speaking. How can I practice speaking by myself? Because I don't have native speaker or friend to speaking with.
Okay, that's a great question, actually, and that is kind of like another question that I saw here. So I'll answer some of these together. Someone else asked, how can I start thinking in English? I always think in Vietnamese and convert to English. My answer is the same for both of these. So how can you practice speaking? It might sound a little silly, but you might have to talk to yourself. So again, my German teacher, she was American, and she was trying to learn German when she was young, but she also had no one to speak to. So what she did was every day she took a walk and she spoke to herself, or at least in her mind, and she described what she saw. Sometimes she carried a recorder. Maybe you can use your phone and record your voice. And it might sound silly. You might look a little crazy, but you're walking down the street and you say, I turned my head and I saw a dog, and there was a man playing a musical instrument, and this, and you just describe what you see. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself, and that still is good. That's still a great thing to do. Just try to do it as much as you can. You can record yourself, maybe even look up an IELTS speaking question, and then get your phone and record yourself, film yourself talking, and listen to it again and think, how does this sound? Does it sound natural? What parts sound weird? What parts should I change and fix? So if you don't have someone to speak to, do that. If you have another friend who's also learning English, tell each other, for 1 hour, we can only speak English together. We have to speak English together, no matter what. So maybe you and a friend can talk about anything, but make sure that you only speak English during some set time. That could be good too. You don't have to speak to another native speaker. Just find someone else that also wants to practice English and practice together. So all of those ways can be very useful. And again, those ways really do help for thinking in English too, rather than translating. If you're describing things to yourself and trying to force your brain to think in English as much as possible, it does become smoother over time.
Thì nếu mà bạn không có cơ hội nói chuyện nhiều với người nước ngoài thì bạn phải tự luyện tập với chính mình. Tôi như thầy có đưa ra một cái ví dụ là bạn của thầy khi mà học tiếng Đức thì chị ấy đi bộ, sau đó là đem theo một cái máy ghi âm và tự nói với chính mình, tự ghi âm, tự miêu tả những cái cảnh vật xung quanh khi mà chị ấy đi bộ. Và mình cũng có thể làm như vậy, và mình có thể ghi âm bằng điện thoại, sau đó nghe lại và mình cố gắng tự nhận xét về cái giọng của mình, nó nghe có tự nhiên không, và tự chỉnh sửa. Hoặc là bạn có thể là tìm một người bạn cũng đang muốn học tiếng Anh và luyện tập với bạn mình, chọn ra một cái khoảng thời gian nào đó và luyện tập với bạn mình. Thì những cách đó cũng có thể giúp cho bạn nói tốt hơn.
What should be done to improve listening skill?
Improve listening? Well, listen as much as possible. Absolutely as much as possible. If you want to become very, very good at listening, do it all the time. You can listen to anything. Listen to music, listen to audiobooks, listen to the radio, but just keep doing it. And if you can listen and also read at the same time, for example, if it's an audiobook, listen but read the words at the same time, that's very useful. So pairing the skills together can be very helpful. But really, with a lot of these things, it's just about doing it as much as you can. If you want to be good at listening, listen to everything you can. Again, podcasts are really good because they're free. You can find lots of things on YouTube to listen to, television, movies, whatever. Just keep doing it. Keep listening as much as you can. Every moment you can, and it will become, you'll improve very quickly.
Thầy nói là mình phải cố gắng nghe nhiều nhất có thể, và có thể nghe cái gì cũng được, có thể là nghe nhạc, có thể là nghe radio, là nghe podcast, hoặc là có những cái dạng sách nói. Thì nếu mà bạn có sách để mà các bạn vừa đọc, các bạn vừa nghe cái sách nói đó thì và so sánh thì nó sẽ rất tốt.
I have a question.
Yes.
How to be confident when talking to outsiders for the first time?
Well, that's a great question. I just want to say that people will be thrilled to talk to you. If you want to speak English, people will be very happy to do so. Especially, I mean, people traveling, right? There's a lot of tourists that travel around that you might encounter, a lot of people traveling. People will be so happy to talk to you. So don't worry, again, don't worry about a mistake. Truly, a lot of times native speakers do not hear mistakes because there are so many different dialects. So don't focus on the mistakes, focus on communicating. If you can say something and the other person can understand your main idea, and if they say something back and you understand the main idea, that's what's important. The point of studying a language is to communicate. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? You will get better the more you do it. The point of a language is to communicate. Language is a tool where, like right now, right? We're from different places, we speak different languages, but I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, and we're understanding each other. That's the point of a language. So how to be confident? Don't worry about mistakes. Just keep doing it. Keep speaking, keep listening, and keep exchanging ideas, because that's why we do it. So don't worry about mistakes, because I promise you, the native speakers are not worrying about the mistakes at all. I promise they're not.
Để tự tin hơn thì mình đừng nên lo lắng, bởi vì đừng có suy nghĩ nhiều về những cái lỗi mình mắc phải, bởi vì thậm chí người bản ngữ người ta còn không quan tâm nhiều và người ta có thể là không nhận ra là mình mắc lỗi luôn. Và hầu như là mọi người đều rất thích nói chuyện. Và vô như những bạn mà đi du lịch tới nước mình chẳng hạn thì mọi người đều rất thích nói chuyện, và ngôn ngữ chỉ là công cụ thôi, chủ yếu là cách mà mình giao tiếp.
Learn rules. What should you learn first?
I'm sorry, what should we learn first? What were the choices?
Say again.
Câu hỏi của mình là gì bạn?
When your list has launched rules, what should you learn first?
Like for beginner, what should we learn first?
Okay. For beginners, I think that probably start by listening. I think that if you start with listening, that's really important. Listening can help you develop all of the other skills. Listening is the easiest one to practice alone because you don't need a lot of materials. I think listening, because listening helps you with your writing. Listening helps you with your speaking. It helps you learn new vocabulary that can help you with reading as well. So if you really want to start from the beginning, if you really want to get the foundations, I believe listening is very important because it's also very practical. It's something that you will be able to use more often. That's my recommendation. I think that listening is very important if you want to focus on one primary skill.
Khi mới bắt đầu thì thầy nghĩ là kỹ năng nghe là kỹ năng mình nên học trước, bởi vì khi nghe thì mình có thể từ đó mình có thể học được nhiều từ mới, nên nó cũng sẽ tốt cho reading, nên nó cũng sẽ tốt cho kỹ năng nói và kỹ năng viết của bạn. Nên thầy nghĩ là nên nghe trước.
I have a question in IELTS. They are so difficult and the tasks are too long, and I don't know what should I focus on.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard, isn't it? I mean, what should you focus on? I mean, of course, I think you should try to focus on all of it, but if it's really too long, like especially in the reading section, some people have trouble with the reading section because the reading is often very long. I think one skill, I'll talk about reading specifically because that's the one that's usually the longest. I think that you should work on trying to identify the main idea. You can, skim the text. You don't have to read every word of it if you don't have the time, but try to read the first few sentences of each paragraph. That's a useful skill just to get the main idea. It really does help with the critical thinking as well to be able to understand what it's talking about. But if you want to get faster at anything, do it more, and try to enjoy it. Try to make English fun. Try to learn to love it, because if it's fun, if it's enjoyable, it'll be so much easier. If it's something that you feel passionate about, it'll become much, much faster and much easier. So don't force yourself to do something boring. Don't force yourself to do a lot of exercises that aren't fun. Find something to read that you like. Someone here recommended books you could read in your free time. Maybe try to read something like, Harry Potter. That's a book that a lot of people know. You've probably seen the movie. You're probably familiar with it. You know the story. Then try to read the book and try to really enjoy it and read along with it, or any book really. Try to find a way to make English fun, and it will help you become faster, which will also help you on the IELTS exam. So honestly, practice makes perfect, but try to find practice that's fun for you. That's my best answer, my best advice for that.
Kỹ năng đọc của IELTS thì các bạn có thể là cố gắng đọc lướt qua và không cần phải là đọc từng chữ, mà mình nhận ra ý chính của mỗi đoạn là nói gì và cố gắng tìm ra niềm vui từ cái việc bạn học thì nó sẽ dễ học hơn. Ví dụ như là bạn luyện kỹ năng đọc và bạn thích đọc những quyển sách như là Harry Potter thì các bạn có thể đọc và học từ những quyển sách đó.
Em có câu hỏi ạ. Can you hear me clearly?
Sure can.
Good evening, Smith, my Charles, and everyone. Thank you for your worship today. I really, really like you, and I have an answer for question for you. Is I intend to participate in IELTS exam, but I have referred to the curriculum of IELTS. It's so hard. Can you give me a tips to study effective more about four skill? It's visual writing skill, how the task of IELTS needs many knowledge to do, and where we should start.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the writing. Let's talk about the writing first. Where to start? Well, one thing I like to do when I'm teaching the writing section to my students is I like to look at examples of the writing that other people have done. You can search online. You can search band 9 writing or band 8 writing and analyze them. So look at an essay that got a good score on the IELTS and read it. What phrases did they use? What structure did they use? That's important. So there's two parts, of course, for the writing. Task 1, you need to be able to understand some chart or some data and copy it. And task 2 is asking you to make an opinion about some topic. The best thing to do is to try to write them. Even if you're just writing them for yourself, try to write them out. And self-study is really important. It's very valuable. Someone else here asked, how can you self-study for the IELTS? You just have to, you can find materials online for free. You can just type into the search bar, IELTS writing question. And I would say do that and look at a question and then try to write it out. Try to write it out as best as you can. At first, it might be a little slow, but keep doing it. And, there's not really any secret to it. It just takes time and practice. In fact, one thing I'd like to say to all of you guys is about becoming better at English. There's no secret to it. I always say that it's not easy, but it's very simple because there is no secret. You just have to use it. The more you write, the better you will be at writing. The more you read, the better you'll be at reading. And the more you speak and listen, the better you will be at speaking and listening. Every time you use a skill, you improve. Every single time. And it becomes better and easier. And your skills become stronger. So the best thing to do is just use it. Use it as much as possible. For the IELTS writing, write as much as possible. Use the practice tests. It really is super helpful. And there are a lot online and they're available for free. You can search online and you can find lots of practice example materials.
Bạn có thể tìm những bài điểm cao mà các bạn khác làm. Các bạn có thể search là benign writing. Sau đó các bạn đọc và phân tích cái bài viết này là những cái cấu trúc mà người ta đã dùng, là những cấu trúc gì. Sau đó thì các bạn có thể tìm đề để tập viết, và thật ra thì cũng không có những cái mánh hay là những cái bí mật nào, mà chủ yếu là các bạn phải luyện tập thật nhiều.
Someone here had a good question about the accents. They asked about the English accent or the American accent and which one they should learn. I wanted to address that. Someone else talked about how do you understand these different types of English accents. When it comes to which one to learn for yourself, I don't think it really makes any difference. I might be biased because I'm from the US. Personally, I think the American accent is easier. I think it's more simple. And it's easier to understand and easier to do. It's easier to copy. Maybe that's because I'm American, but a lot of times my students tell me that as well, because at my school, my boss was British and they all had trouble understanding him. And the truth is sometimes I did too. So personally, I think the American accent is easier, but that's just my opinion because of course I'm from the US. Maybe that's just what I think. As for understanding other accents, honestly, it can be hard, even to me as a native speaker. If I hear somebody with a very strong Irish accent or a very strong Australian accent, sometimes it's a little difficult. It just is. So, I mean, again, practice, try to listen to these different accents. On the IELTS exam, sometimes in the listening part, people will have different accents. So it's important to be familiar with them. Try to listen to them as much as you can. Listen to the practice tests. But it can be hard. And in real life, right, try to speak to a lot of different people if you can from many countries, and try to listen online to people speaking from many different countries. And if you really can't understand someone, it's okay to ask them to repeat what they said or to write something down, because again, it's just important to be able to communicate. I admit, sometimes it's hard even for me, but that's just, that's one of the challenges of having a language that's spoken in so many different countries, that it's going to be very different from one place to the next. But that's also what makes English kind of fun and kind of interesting, in my opinion.
Theo thầy thì thậm chí người bản ngữ cũng không thể hiểu được hết các giọng mà người ta nói tiếng Anh từ các nước khác nhau, ví dụ như giọng Úc nếu mà nó quá nặng, hoặc là giọng Anh quá nặng thì thầy đôi lúc cũng không thể hiểu được. Thì các bạn cố gắng nghe thật nhiều, cố gắng nói chuyện với những người từ nhiều nước khác nhau, và nếu mà không hiểu thì nó sẽ là ổn nếu mà bạn hỏi người ta lặp lại, không sao cả.
I have a question.
Yes.
How to think in English so that I don't waste time translating from English to Vietnamese and then from Vietnamese to English to answer the question.
Right. Yes, that is really important, right? It's important to get to that point where you can think in the language rather than translating. That's very hard. It's something that I have trouble with too. I mentioned that I can speak German and I can speak Thai, and I have to really make myself think, because otherwise my brain wants to translate. So how do you get to that point? Well, it kind of comes down to just becoming really familiar with using the language, trying to use it more and more until you don't have to think about each word, but you can just think about the meaning you want to say. it takes time. I really think that just takes time, and it takes, it takes some time, but the truth is it does happen. It does happen eventually. Try to force yourself not to translate. Try to force yourself to not worry if you hear a sentence. Don't worry about every word. Try to get the main idea, right? That's how you should do it when it comes to the listening. And then if you want to speak, again, try not to think about every word you want to say. Try to think about the whole sentence, right? That's really a great way of doing that, trying to overcome that translation process, and tell yourself in your brain to stop translating each word. Stop translating. Try to focus on the main idea. It just takes time. Like all of these things, I wish there was a secret I could tell you. I wish there was some magic I could do and snap my fingers and make that happen. But it just takes effort. And if you really want to get to that point, you will. You just have to keep practicing.
Thực ra thì dùng nhiều thì mình sẽ bắt đầu quen, và ví dụ như mình học thì mình cố gắng nhớ cả câu và không cần phải chú ý đến từng từ, để khi nào mình cần dùng thì mình có thể nói nguyên cái câu đó luôn, và cố gắng bắt mình phải suy nghĩ bằng tiếng Anh.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes.
I am translating with Google Translate. Maybe I don't pronounce correctly, but I want to try. I'm normally quite shy. Do I need to take the IELTS test to be able to speak friendly with native speakers confidently? And how to train the habit of today's student when some people only care about writing skill for the exam? And what do you think the problem of the exam of the English exam in Vietnam only focus on writing skill?
Yeah, okay, that you had some good questions there. Yes, I do think that's a problem. In fact, so I'm a teacher in Thailand, and in Thailand it's very similar. The schools always focus on grammar and writing, but in real life those are not that important. So I mean, it's hard to change the whole school system. I can't do that. But I would say for yourself, don't worry too much about it. Try to focus on communication instead. That's what's really important. I have some students who get perfect grades on every exam, but if I ask them a simple question, they can't answer. I have other students who maybe make some mistakes and they might get a B grade on the exam, but they'll try to talk to me and we can communicate. So I think the second student is the one that's better at English. So in real life, communication is what's important. As for the IELTS exam, do you have to take the IELTS exam to become more fluent? Not at all. The IELTS exam is a useful exam if you want to work or study abroad. You probably need to take it if you want to go abroad. But as for becoming fluent, it's not necessary to become fluent. It can help if you want to do it. It can help you focus on the 4 main aspects of language, yes, but it's not required if you don't want to go abroad. But if you want to study or work, usually you have to have that IELTS exam grade.
Cũng giống như hệ thống trường học ở Thái Lan thì người ta cũng chỉ quan tâm đến ngữ pháp. Nhưng mà thực tế thì các bạn học tiếng Anh để có thể sử dụng được trong thực tế, để các bạn có thể giao tiếp được. Và về việc học để thi IELTS thì có cần thiết hay không, thì IELTS là một bài thi mà các bạn cần phải có điểm IELTS để mà đi du học. Nhưng mà để mà nói tiếng Anh nhiều nhuần hơn thì học IELTS nó cũng có thể giúp, nhưng mà có rất nhiều cách khác để các bạn có thể nói tiếng Anh và sử dụng tiếng Anh tốt hơn mà không cần phải học IELTS.
I have a question.
Yes.
My writing skills are terrible. Next year, I want to take the entrance exam to a specialized school. So there isn't any way to improve that part. I really grateful that tonight you have answered me a lot of places where I really thanks.
Yeah, so the entrance exam and the writing skills. Again, I would just say yes. Try to read a lot and try to write a lot. Do a lot of practice essays. Try your best to write the practice essays, and read some example entrance exams. So I mean, I think that there are so many resources online that you can find. I think that if you search for example entrance exam, just type that into Google, you'll probably find some essays that people have written. Example entrance essays, things like that. Read them. Read as many as you can. Look at the words they use and the word choice they use and the way that they express their ideas. Again, if there's one thing I can emphasize to all of you, it's that the English in translates to English out, right? The more you read and the more you listen, the better you will be overall. Just keep practicing. Keep working hard and keep practicing. Again, there's no secret to it. You just have to force yourself to do it as much as possible. And sometimes it'll be hard and sometimes you'll get exhausted, but you just have to keep trying and keep pushing yourself forward. And every time you write an essay, you'll be better. Every time you listen to something, you'll be better. Every time you read a book, you'll be better. And every time you speak to someone, you'll be better. Every single time you'll improve. It just takes practice for all of that.
Good morning, sir. Oh, good evening, sir. I have a question.
Okay.
Why did you move to Thailand? I know it's a question of your privacy, but I'm curious.
So I think there's a bit of a connection problem. Would you be able to type the question out for me in the chat, please?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can. It's a bit blurry.
Why did you move to Thailand?
Why did I move to Thailand? It was for my job. I got a job as a teacher. Yeah. So I was hired to teach high school English, and that's why. So it was just for the job originally. But I'm very glad I came here. I've been here for 9 years now, and it feels like home. Right. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, I think that it's about 9 o'clock now, so I believe that we are just about at the end of our session today. I just want to thank you guys so much for your fantastic questions. I hope that I was able to inspire you all in some way, and I just hope that I could encourage you guys to keep practicing, because that's what matters. Practice makes perfect. That's really my motto. Practice makes perfect. If you want to be better, keep doing it, no matter what. Practice makes perfect. I want to encourage you guys to try to use English every day, even if you're just speaking to yourself, even if you're just writing a journal to yourself, or if you're just reading a book for fun or watching YouTube, every single day. And you'll improve over time so quickly. And if you're here, it means you're motivated. And if you took the time to come and listen to me today, it means that you're passionate about this and you want to improve. And that's all that matters. If you're motivated, you will get better, right? You'll push yourself forwards. So keep practicing. Keep using English as much as you can. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, especially in speaking. Mistakes don't really matter. Don't worry about it. Be confident. Communication matters, not being perfect, right? Again, English is a tool. If you can use it to communicate, then you have succeeded. And that's what you need to do in real life, in a real life situation. So I just want to encourage you guys to keep trying, keep practicing, and keep working as hard as you can. You will succeed. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. So I think it's time limited. So on behalf of our team, I want to send a huge thank you to you because you joined this meeting. And everybody in this meeting, is really grateful to you because your inspiration that I think is really, really useful for us. And so there's so many questions here, but we don't have time to answer all of these questions, right? So I really like your quote practice makes perfect. Yeah, practice makes
Absolutely.
perfect. So everyone in this meeting, you understand this course in Vietnamese? So many people, they want to send a huge thank you to you.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you all. Thank all of you for your great questions and your attention. You guys are great. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so you can introduce a little bit about the speaking course of you in
right.
Okay, for everybody.
Absolutely. So everyone, yeah, as mentioned, I am the co-founder of a group called Lang Club, which you can see right here, Lang Club. Lang Club, we host free English conversation sessions, and I host them myself every week. Right now, we host 6 times every week. So I can type some information here. If you give me one moment here. You can join my free English conversation practice. So at the moment, we require that everyone must be at least 16 years old. But if you are 16, you can join my free English conversation practice every week on langclub.live. That's langclub.live. You can check us out there. You can also find us, of course, on YouTube. We like to record our free conversation sessions and share them there as well. So yeah, if you're 16, I'd like to invite you along to come and join us. I host six times every week for free for conversation practice. And it's another great way to improve and keep getting better. And yes, and on YouTube as well. So I hope that you guys will come and join us. It would be a blast, and you're all invited as long as you are within the age requirements that we have. So please do langclub.live.
Okay, so I want to translate for
okay.
Understand this. So Michael or Mr. Michael say that if you are 16 plus, you can join my free English conversation practice every week on langclub.live. Thì mình nói với các bạn qua một vài thứ là thầy Michael có một cái chương trình học tiếng Anh thì học miễn phí thì có lần một tuần. Tuy nhiên dành cho những bạn ở trên 16 cộng thì các bạn có thể tham gia miễn phí. Nếu như các bạn muốn practice speaking nhiều hơn nữa thì các bạn có thể tham gia. Thì tất cả những cái chương trình chi tiết mọi thứ thì mình sẽ gửi sau cho các bạn, nên các bạn cứ yên tâm và hãy chờ đợi cho một cái phần đó là mình bứt phá thêm cái kỹ năng speaking của mình trong thời gian tới nhá. Thì không biết là bạn Thư có muốn nói thêm điều gì không? Thì cái khóa này là được tổ chức bởi Năng Club, thì vừa nãy mình nghe thầy bảo là thầy chính là người tự làm luôn myself, tức là tự tạo ra cái đó, tạo ra cái club đó và mọi người có thể join. Bạn Thư có gì nói sâu hơn tí hơn nữa được không ạ?
Thì tụi mình có một câu lạc bộ tên là Lang Club, thì mỗi tuần tụi mình có 6 buổi nói chuyện một tuần, và các buổi nói chuyện này đều là miễn phí. Và trong buổi nói chuyện này thì sẽ có rất nhiều các bạn từ các nước khác nhau đến tham gia, và thầy Michael sẽ là người host cái buổi tập nói tiếng Anh này. Và hiện nay thì bọn mình có một số lưu ý là tụi mình yêu cầu các bạn từ 16 tuổi trở lên và hiện nay là có trình độ trung cấp. Tuy nhiên thì trong thời gian tới thì có thể tụi mình sẽ mở thêm các lớp cho các bạn mới bắt đầu. Thì tụi mình đang trong cái hoạt động. Sau này thì mình sẽ trao đổi thêm với Huy về vấn đề này.
Okay, so thank you. I think it's really useful for you. It's really, really good when we have a free course for people who want to improve their speaking skill. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Do you have any class after this meeting?
Not today. No, I think it's about time for me to call it a night, watch some TV, and just be relaxed. So no, nothing more today. This is my final task for the day.
Yeah, I think it's a time for you to recharge your batteries.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you everybody on this meeting. So
thank you all.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Mr. Michael.
My pleasure. I hope you all enjoyed it today.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Thank you everyone. Okay, so we
All right.
will finish this meeting right now.
All right. Good night, everyone. Take care. Thank you all for your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Good night.